Why is it? Oh, it's going. Oh, there we are. Do you see that we're live?
Yeah, I know I don't see it, but fine.
We are live. We are live,
All
Nino.
right. Okay, there I see it. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Bill.
How you doing, Nino?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm here in Belgium right now, so it's pretty cold. I don't know about your place. Where are you at?
Just north of Seattle.
Seattle. Okay, that's the West Coast, right? Yeah,
West Coast. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
If you're ever out here, you're welcome. I would love to show you
thank you.
around. It's a little bit of a coastal area, so our
Mhm.
winters are a little bit more mild. We have a lot
Yeah.
of overcast, a lot of rainy
Mhm.
days, and
Mhm.
but right now we had a little cold snap. We got some snow on the ground, and
Yeah.
I'm anxious for the warm weather, and it is February now, so we still have a couple more months. But I love it. I love springtime here, and there's no place like this on the face of the earth. I'm convinced,
Really?
especially late summer. If you ever come
Yeah.
late summer, and if
Mhm.
you're ever interested in coming, I'd love to have you. I got a space out here. Maybe we could do a seminar or something. We could talk
Yeah.
about that off record or off.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live stream on the Bow Wow Bill channel on YouTube, on Facebook, and on X. If you guys aren't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. I also have a Patreon page for a little bit more in-depth content. I'll be working on producing more content for that. If you guys are interested, I'll put the link to the comments down below. I have with me Nino from STS K9, and what I'm going to do, Nino, is I'm going to share this. And we have a couple people joining us. It takes a while for people to trickle in here. And if you're watching this, please share it as well. And while I share it, do you want to do a quick little introduction about who you are? And we know you're located in Belgium and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. So I am Nino. Well, I have a company now, STS K9, which is catered towards people who have dogs, obviously, want to train their dogs themselves. So we build an online structure for people that are either new to dog training and just want to start from puppy or have an adult dog, or professionals like train the trainer or law enforcement. So we cover a lot of specialties in the K9, as we are known for providing a type of obedience that makes the dog look really fast and precise and really in love with what they do. We love to connect with the dogs. We love them to be, performers. And by performing, I mean actually every dog performs, because obedience is performance as it is. But there's always levels of performance. And we like the dog to have so many skills that he can combine, so he make things look better and faster and more efficient than any other dog. That's what we like, because they have the potential to do so. In our program, we have dogs like beagles and pinchers and chihuahuas, even all the way up to elite dogs that actually work in special forces. So we serve a lot of people, because regardless of the breed, some of these principles will always apply. And I am a little bit different as in traditional training, where I do not rely on the quadrants and all the science-based stuff that is out there, because it's a lot of cognitive skills I have no problem studying. But for me, the practical application comes first. That means instead of overthinking dog training, we have to simplify to, okay, then what is it exactly we're going to do to make these dogs do these things faster and better? Because you're on a time restriction. If you train dogs, you don't have years. So whatever you do has to be efficient, and whatever you prioritize is going to impact your dog significantly over time. So the strategy is going to be the most important thing, and that's what we do. We deliver a strategy for people. And in the past, before I did this, I was a police officer / canine instructor and handler for a little bit over 10 years at the K9 unit, the biggest department in Belgium. So I had 3 different certified dogs that I have deployed in real time, real life, as they say. And that's what I was doing. I was also on the board for instructors, police K9 instructors. So a lot of things with the police that I've done before I went into this. So I did a few seminars, and then the demand was so high that I had to choose. What am I going to do? Split my time or dedicate it towards my passion, which is, building a platform for people who want to learn more about dog training, or people who are trainers and want to enhance their skills. So, long story.
No, that's great. Now, when did you get your first dog, Nino?
I got my first dog in 2005, but that wasn't like just, oh, yeah, I've always been in dogs. Not the case. Actually, I was already working as a police officer, and I thought to myself, hey, the canine unit, wouldn't that be something for me? And I literally woke up one day and thought, would that be an option? But I had a few obstacles, which were I was afraid of dogs. I never had a dog, didn't know anything about dogs. There were only 6 positions for 3,000 people that were in the department, and yeah, being afraid of dogs was definitely the biggest obstacle because I was interested. I was always, I would say, intrigued by dogs, but my whole life as a kid, I was always very afraid of dogs. When we had one family member with a lot of Groenendahlers, which are Belgian Shepherd breeds, so brothers of the Malinois, sort of speaking. So Belgian Shepherd, they have three varieties. One of them is the Black Groenendaler, and they had six of them. And I remember when we went to visit them, my mom always used to say, "Don't even move, don't look them in the eyes," like all that kind of stuff that makes you really scared as a kid. And it was true because I will never forget. At some point, I was sitting in their couch. I was like 8 years old, and I was looking at one of those dogs, and the dog was looking back, and I couldn't stop staring, and neither did he. And at some point, I heard my aunt say, "All right, take him away. He's growling now," and I could hear like he was like really upset that I was looking at him. So I thought all the things that they said that were making me afraid of was actually true. So actually, I never touched any dogs then. But I was intrigued by this whole thing that happened. It was like fear, but also excitement. But the fear won until I got this crazy idea that I wanted to do something that actually was impossible. Because, first of all, if you're afraid of dogs, what are you even thinking going to the canine unit? So I had to, build my way up all the way from the bottom, which is literally go on YouTube, go on Google, see what all this is about, call people, visit clubs, see how it goes in Belgium. We have a big club tradition. So you can just literally get in your car, drive in my case, drive 60 seconds, and there's already a club here, and see what people do in protection work. So that's the good part. So you do have access to some hands-on quite easily because there's so many clubs. Belgium is a very small country, also very regional, and then you have like all these clubs who are competing with each other in Belgian ring. We're talking now 20 years ago. Back then, it was already on its decline, but there were still quite some clubs. Today, it's even less. Of course, as you know, everything's on decline here in Europe when it comes to protection sports, especially the very traditional ones like Belgian ring. And not many people know that Belgian ring is actually one of the genetic pools that made the Malinois an ambassador worldwide for police dogs, because the level of difficulty in this program was so high that it was nearly impossible to do unless you had one of those they called specimens, right? The 1%ers of Malinois that had and the grip and the agility, the power, the jumping. There was so many things that went into this program that you really were looking at the 1%ers. So the people that had breedings from these genetic pools, and back in the day, they were not as a nice dog, let's just breed. No, they had to be competition proof, be in the game for many years, be able to do all the jumps, you know, really show their toughness in training and stuff like that. And only then they would be considered to even think about breeding. Just to tell you how the standards have completely changed in just 2 decades, from trying to find the elite of the elite based on this criteria that is almost impossible for any other breed to do, which is not as a discrimination towards other breeds, but still till today, no other breed has ever won a championship in Belgian ring besides the Malinois. So, and yeah, and actually, I actually don't even know. I would have to look this up. So I'm not going to say it as a statement, but I think it would be very unlikely if it was any other Malinois than from the original Belgian bloodlines. So the NVBK bloodlines. So you have FCI, AKC, as they say in the United States. So there's different organizations, and the NVBK was not recognized by the AKC, right? So they developed their own bloodlines. There was only one federation per country that would be recognized. So in this case, it was Saint-Hubert, who were associated with the AKC. NVBK wasn't. So they built their own bloodlines. Very, very different dogs. Now, what you do see, just to go into a little bit of the history, is that there's a lot of AKC pedigrees that are false because they used NVBK bloodlines to upgrade the bloodline, but they obviously were not allowed to to show this, so they took different pedigrees of different dogs. Yeah, you will see English names, for example, or Brazilian pedigrees in AKC working lines, which makes absolutely no sense, of course, but these were NVBK bloodlines. They just used the paperwork. Back in the day, the DNA and stuff like that wasn't all that tight, and there was a lot of cheating around with pedigrees because the breeder said, oh, we want these specimens to be in our bloodlines, but we don't have the chance to use them because you're from a different federation. And yeah, that's why they started screwing with pedigrees to begin with. So the cool thing is about Belgium, you can literally, if you're in this world, you can call with people, you can talk to them, you can go visit them, you will know everything you want to know. Really, a lot of people are actually open about this, as in, if you're part of the Belgian ring, NVBK obsessed people, they have no problem telling you. Obviously, if you're going to pick up the phone and you say, I think I have some doubts about my pedigree, they're not going to answer you that, for sure not. So just to say, there's only a few people that actually know. If you want to know, you will find out, but nobody's going to tell you. So, so what I've been doing, to give you a little bit of a background, is I saw, because I was heavy on research. I'm an analyst also, so I like to analyze what skills are, potential of dogs, why the NVBK dogs were so extremely good. So as a profiler of talent for dogs on the highest level, such as working dogs, Belgian ring. So and what I did over the years is I did the same for them for handlers. So then I started profiling handler skills in 2020. So I had some help of a professor who was in first case he was a student, and I didn't know he was a mathematician or he had a PhD. He designed a psychometric tool to assess professional talents for people. So he came with me to the US. He saw my seminars. He was very intrigued with what I did. And together we built the MVP, which is like the master view path, which profiles handlers and dogs and how the two connect in skills. So we're looking at 5 major skills for handlers, and we're looking at 5 major skills for dogs. And these 5, if you would master these combinations, would give you a better way to develop your talent as a dog trainer and to develop your dog's potential to use his exceptional skill, because a lot of dogs have exceptional skills, but nobody knows about them because you need to know how to extract them, you see. So long story, but anyways, what conclusion was, I was very, very passionate, obsessed with the Malinois. Of course, that's how it started. Look at these guys in the back. Yeah. So, yeah. So I'm very, very obsessed with them. But later on, I was also obsessed about training, not just dogs themselves and their talents, but how to get that potential. So what I saw was one of the greatest dogs in 15, 20 years ago when I just started. I saw like amazing, amazing dogs. And people were brutal with them, very harsh training, such as only corrections. Like, these dogs would be going through a brick wall, so to speaking, and they could only use tools to leverage the control. And I found that that's like the thing that I didn't like so much. I'm more soft handed, like I'm not that type of person. So for me to just accept then what these club people try to tell me, like, hey, you do this and this and this is how we roll. It wasn't just something I was going to say, yes, of course, why not? It wasn't in my personality. So I try to find ways. I've always thought to myself, what if I could ever own one of those dogs that they have and not have to do the things that they do to train them? So that was always my underlying obsession. What if I would ever have a dog like they have, but just be able to train it so it could show all that potential without having to blast this dog and do all these things I didn't like? And I finally got the luck, because I was a headhunter for that type of dog, and I got the luck to get one of those 1%ers, and that's how the journey began. So in what year was that? That was like 10 years ago. I had Rocky, like 10 years ago. I had Rocky, and Rocky was one of those dogs. So I was very blessed with him, and he opened my mind. Like I said, I was already an analyst, so he made me analyze even more and think about ways on how to, use my strategies that I already built with another dog, Cody, who I competed with in Belgian ring, by the way. And I did all the police work with and stuff like that. So, and Rocky was like he is my, how do you say, the love of my life when it came to developing what I do today. So yeah, still very passionate about it. So I'll take on any conversation talking about dogs, because I do it all day.
Well, and I've noticed
Mhm.
that sometimes in the bite world we get a lot of machismo, a lot
Mm.
of I don't know, guys that like to force the way or force the
Yeah.
conversation. So it makes sense, and it doesn't. I mean, if there's a better way to do this, then I want to do that. Like it's a good rapport when you have a good
Mhm.
rapport, good relationship with a living being, whether it be human or dog, that is powerful, right? Because now you're having a conversation. The dog is our feedback loop. What are in your MVP? And I think this is fascinating, man, because as somebody who's primarily a pet dog person, right? And I see people of all different on the spectrum of being really coordinated,
Mhm.
really in tune with their dogs, and kind of get what they're doing. And sometimes I've said this, I see more talent in some of my clients' kids
Mhm.
than I do see in other colleagues that do this professionally. Right.
Yeah.
And so there is something that goes with that. Would you mind mentioning the profile that makes a good handler, the five
No.
different things?
No, I could talk about it. Well, it's quite substantial, so I'm not going to be able to give you the exact detailed breakdown because, that's per pillar, you'll be talking about easily 30, 35 minutes to really list all the things that go into one skill. But the first one is what would one assume to be an obvious one, but is not, which are, there's two actually, but there's one specifically which is going to extract a lot of technical skill, and that is movement. So handler movement has been probably the most
Hmm.
underrated skill for dog trainers because we believe since we train dogs, it's a dog that has to do all this stuff. So we assume when we find a good method and a good way to motivate this dog to do the things that we want him to do, to, use the right balance of whatever ideas you have, the dog's just going to do and perform things, which is right if these things are quite linear and straightforward. Once they become technical, once you will look into precision, when you look into mechanics, it is actually quite technical. Now, how do I even think about this? Well, look at this way. Remember, I didn't have any background in dogs whatsoever, but I did have a background in track and field, more sprinting, running, which you would say,
Okay.
isn't that also pretty straightforward? Just run as fast as you can, and that's how it works. Well, no, there's so much technique involved. This is the footwork, the hip work. They're like, oh my God, it was like it's probably the hardest thing I've ever attempted in my life was to emulate one of my best friends who was an Olympian at the 200 meters. And me trying to even get remotely close to what he was doing had such a technical level to it. There's so many skills combined also for him, and I was able to assess them, and I was able to see, okay, this is what it's going to take. So I came in with a mindset of the probably the top of the world in this industry in dog training is going to be on a superior technical level when it comes to themselves and training their dogs. But it wasn't the case because I started analyzing and I started assessing, okay, what is happening here? What are the moves here that cannot be done by somebody who's never done this before? And we're not just looking then at a finished product, of course, we're looking at in development, what are these handlers doing from a technical perspective? And I was actually blown away by how low the basis of this level was. So there actually was no level. It was just like we're just doing stuff. So the coordination on how to get dogs to go into certain positions was actually all up to the dog. So they left it up to the dog to come up with the speed, with the precision. And yeah, they had some tools and some things or some boxes. Like they use a lot of props to get dogs into positions,
Yes.
which
Right.
I don't like. I like a freestyle, which requires the handler to find his own skill to bring that perfection into motion. And that is something that was not done before because at the level where I was at and everybody that I went to and the things that I looked up on YouTube, there was actually nobody doing this. But remember, I came from this background which required you to be as technical as, to insanity, like the way you roll the foot and the way you push this and so on and so on. The way you take a hurdle, like it is insane. And to me, it was like, hey, wait a second here. This means there's a vacuum of skills that's never been explored because people just haven't looked into mechanics. But looking into mechanics, you can't be looking into the dog. You first have to look at the handler. Now, in some sports, it's very obvious you're going to have to do things solo. But when it came to dog training, I saw nobody training solo. Like, for example, if you're in boxing, you're going to train not just with a person to beat him in the head or to hit him in the head. You're going to work in front of a mirror. Like, you're going to be on your own working on your technical skills. But in dog training, it wasn't the case. There was always a dog involved. So that's when I already knew, like, hey, wait a second here. There's nobody training without a dog. How can you be at a technical level that once you get the dog, you can immediately have the upper hand when it comes to technicalities? And that's not the case. So usually what happens is people get a dog, and then the dog has to help them become technical. Well, do you know how many repetitions you would need then to become technical? Well, this poor dog is gonna have to do all the work for you, and then by the time you find out, like, it's his case is already over. You're already looking at the next dog then.
Yeah.
So, and that's the problem. So I found there's a way to avoid this issue and to just work on a certain movement in a certain way, handwork, footwork, placement. So you have to understand the flow, the mechanics, and it has to be in your subconscious, you see? So your subconscious means that now you can't help but do the thing. And if you have to think about doing the thing, that's when it goes wrong. If you no longer have to think about the thing, then you become the thing, and therefore things go very smooth and easy. And that's how you start combining skills, because the master view is about combining multiple skills so you could do things better, faster, and more efficient with less effort and a better outcome still than anybody else. That is truly what the definition of talent is. So therefore, how do you get these in your subconscious? Well, by practicing them and understanding them. So if you want to see the detail, for example, if I would show you at a seminar, let's say I come visit you in Seattle, and we say, okay, show me this motion. I can show you this motion 10 times. We go, okay, I think probably see it. You didn't. You have to actually slow it down in 100 frames per second, and you have to watch it from multiple angles with multiple sides of that, because everything, like there's so much detail in it. Unless you study the details, it's like you never even saw it in the first place.
Yeah,
So
the nuances, right? It's split seconds. A dog
yeah,
lives in the world of split seconds, and we need to too,
yeah,
and we need to have that muscle memory. So it's not a
mhm,
conscious decision. It starts to become automatic, reflexive. That makes sense. And reminds me, I was a runner too, but it also reminds me of golfing, right? Like I don't
oh,
know how much they golf
extremely
and
technical. Yeah,
right, and so it was like you just stand there by yourself. You're going to swing a club, and I
hmm
remember hiring a golf coach once, and I remember her just telling me about the small changes that I can make in my body, and it made that ball go straight. And so it's and just practicing it so it becomes automatic, not just automatic for you, but it's just it becomes based on the performance that you are doing, and then that shows you, like I said earlier, we have that feedback mechanism of the dog, and let the dog
yeah,
show you. And we have a limited time with these animals because they don't live so long, and so
yeah.
might as well do the groundwork beforehand.
But look,
And
it is so counterintuitive that nobody does it. Look, imagine yourself. You go buy your dog, your puppy. But that's when you actually start going into panic mode, usually, because people do something and they're like, oh, yeah, like, oh my, like, I need to do something. I need a structure. Okay, where do I go? Let's say you go online or you find a trainer, and then you get the program, and the program tells you, don't involve the dog yet. Let's just skip that part and let's just involve the dog, right? I mean, the dog needs training, right? I just bought the program. I'm going to just do this with the dog. Speaks for itself. So it's very counterintuitive to do things in a dog training program that does not involve a dog. But that's the whole problem, is that people are not used to getting these type of explanations, like, oh, you bought a dog training program, can we now see your assessment here and your assignment also, because I give them assignments without the dog. Like, huh? Without the dog? What do you mean? It's a dog training program. See, they want to involve the dog day one. But actually, if you go to a club, any club, they will tell you, all right, bring the dog in. They get you a leash, they get you a marker. I mean, if you're lucky, they get you a marker. But anyways, they let you do things, talk to the dog, praise the dog, reward the dog, move with the dog. So they let you do a combination of things which you have no clue what it is you're doing, and then you're surprised things are not going to work. Well, of course not, because if you take dog training skills serious as a skill, well, then of course it's going to take also details, and you need to understand what it is you need to start with. And if you don't know, well, then you're going to be doing what everybody else does and go feet first, and then yeah, you don't know what's going to happen. You have no strategies. Like, I predict everything that happens, literally. That's why I'm never worried. I know everything that's going to happen. My strategy is like a 6-9 month strategy, I know exactly when he's going to be focus heel and when he's going to do street heel, when he's going to do contact heel, when he's going to do switch drives, when he's going to do that technical movement without any lure, when I'm going to fade. Like I have it all in my head, which brings me to probably one of the biggest skills of all time when it comes to dog twinning is imagination. There is literally zero imagination, but you can't blame anybody for not having imagination because people paint a picture for you. But that picture is actually very like mediocre. It is usually a bunch of props, right? And a few steps that always involve basic. I know they call it basic obedience for a reason because they want people to be basic for some reason, and their dogs too. Although the dogs, I'm sure, wouldn't agree with that. And they try to simplify it where it actually has nothing to it. So yeah, I mean, we're a little bit in trouble because it's not normal that somebody who never handled a dog has to find out like, hey, wait a second here, what a discrepancy there is between training Olympic discipline such as running or golfing and stuff like that is obviously way more evolved and advanced. There's money in it. And dog training is on this low level skill as people don't even think about it because it's a dog that needs to do all this stuff, that there's no research. I mean, imagine a professor. If I would have to hire this guy, if I would say, you know what, I really want to innovate this world a little bit, I need some help from somebody who's an expert in their own domain, and I would hire somebody of that qualification. How much do you think that would cost to hire this person for, let's say, 2 months?
Oh,
That's
thousands,
unaffordable.
thousands of
Yeah,
dollars.
forget it. It's not going to happen unless you have some kind of fund. But who's going to fund this? Like, why do you need a professor in talent development for people if you're the dog trainer? It makes no sense. So you got to have like a little bit of luck that you meet somebody who's willing to do things without any remuneration. Is that how you say it? And without expecting to be compensated big time, but just for his beliefs in, hey, maybe I can help another industry, with my expertise, and which is great. This is how we should work, is collaborate and see
Yes.
what other great people do. That's why I said like the technical things from track and field is what I implemented as the first thing in my training. Without even understanding dog training, I knew there's always levels to the game, and if you're very technical in anything, this will always level you up. So I knew there's got to be technical things in dog training that people not paying attention to, but once you start paying attention to it and you master them, you have the edge when it comes to skills. So there's always a technical skill which is completely underrated, like I said, the movement and imagination, because all these props, what they do is they give people imagination. Let's say I got to pivot my dog. Okay, what do I need? Well, let me just take one of those these bowls and put the front paws on, and that's how you pivot. But says who? Is that a technical pivot? That's like the opposite of a technical pivot. A technical pivot means the dog has control over its back end, so its four paws can move individually, but in such a technical way that he has no problem sidestepping, backsliding, like in all directions. But you will never get that from using that prop. So the prop actually makes it worse for you. So the prop that's supposed to deliver a result, which is a pivot, is giving you the opposite, because your pivot will actually be a very rigid movement where just his front paws moving, and he will have no control over his whole body, as if you would do it with manual manipulations. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean. The people skills will trump any tool you have. As simple as that. Like there's an e-collar ban in Europe, as you know.
Yes.
And people like, imagine in the US they would have a ban right now. I think 95% of businesses would be done, because you would go to jail if you use it. You go to jail. Simple as that. And you don't have to agree with it, but let's just say they impose it. The new administration says, you know what, it's done with zapping dogs. This is not how we do things in the West. Let's just quit this stuff. That's basically what they've done in Europe. You can be against it or for it, doesn't matter. Okay, it's done, right? No debate anymore. And you can say, yes, but I'm an expert. Doesn't matter. We're all criminals. Now what?
Yeah.
Now what? You see? But that's what
Yes.
I mean. Like there's so much relation to tools that we forgot about the skills, because the tool is solving the skill problem. So instead of looking at the skill, we're looking at what tool do I need? Well, people buy a puppy. Well, what tool do I need to train this puppy? Tell me the things he needs. I'm like, what things? Like, there's nothing here. Like, what do you want me to think of? A leash is the obvious, because you don't want him to run away if you go on the street. Okay. But then what? And that's when it becomes heavily loaded with emotions. Like, oh yeah, but You need a collar for this. You need a pinch. Or maybe not a pinch. Maybe it's a choke. Or maybe not a choke. You can kill a dog with a choke. Okay, then let's do something else. Let's do a plastic prong collar. No, that's even too harsh as well. Okay, let's do a flat collar. Okay, but then when he pulls, he's supposed to pull also because it's an activation to it. And here we go. You see, now we're in all discussing tools. And again, we forget about discussing skills first. What good is the tool without the skill? Can you push a button? Can you push a button? Yeah, of course, everybody can push the button. That's not the skill. The skill was, how do you combine the push of this button with 5 other skills? So the push of the button would have a different outcome than just pushing it for the sake of it. Oh, yeah, I pushed it. Oh, you're not supposed to do this. Let me push this button. No, that's not a skill. And a lot of people think timing is such an asset as a dog trainer. Like, what timing? You know whether timing really matters? If you're in F1, driving a car which goes 300 kilometers per hour, I think your timing probably is going to be a game changer and a life changer also. And dog training, well, excuse me, that timing is not on that level that, oh, well, you missed it now by a half second. Like, oh, forget it. It's done here. No, it's not like that. So the priority on how people see skills, I don't know where they got it from and to begin with. So, to me, it doesn't make sense.
I think it's a simplification that they want to simplify it instead of doing the preparedness that it takes that you're talking about. You know, there's a saying that an ounce of preparation is worth a pound of the cure. And essentially that's what I see a lot is that we need to prepare to stop something from happening in the first place, other than to repair the damage after it's happened. And that's what I'm always being called for, is how do I repair the damage? And if we can get in front and show ways that we can prevent it in the first place to understand and to instill skills, I think that that's huge.
Yeah, but that's what it is. Like, I've talked to a vet, and he made she done publications on a European level. So she done also for e-collar ban. So she was in the lobby for the government to speak of this ban, why it's important, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, this lady comes here not because of me, not because of STS K9 and Nino. She was willing to come because of the professor. I told you I work with the professor, and professor reaching out to a professor as a colleague and says, hey, we're working on something. Are you interested in coming and listen to our story on how we see talent development and stuff like that? So, okay, she's interested. Well, then all of a sudden it turns into a debate about e-collar. Like, we're here to debate e-collar. Why are we even going there? So we were talking about something like true innovation, like something that has not been researched. The professor said, I went to the data, like all the data you can find, because they have ways to research publications and stuff different than ours. And he said there was nothing I could find about handling profiles, talent profiles, and stuff like that. So we questioned this vet and we said, look, you came up with a lot of conclusions based on research you've done, but can we see the handler profile? Because obviously the output of a dog is the input of the handler. So can we see how this handler is built without just talking about parameters such as a certified police dog trainer or instructor? That doesn't tell me anything about their individual skills, as in a breakdown. It doesn't tell me anything. You could be certified and the worst, and you could be certified and the best. So that parameter is just not enough. So, and that's where the whole thing imploded, because 100% the dog is always what you put into it. So you can have the best genetic dog in the world right now, the 1%er I talked about, but you don't know anything to train dogs. Well, what do you think is going to happen? So whatever you're going to measure is always going to be a result of what this person who owned the dog put in. Makes sense to me. But for some reason, when you ask, well, show me then the profile of this person, and how has this result been reproduced with other dogs? And so you see, we're looking just for more data here than just accept the fact that this dog is stressed for whatever reason. You don't know, because unless you understand the handler, unless you've done a profile study on the handler, there is no way you can judge the outcome of the dog. Because what are you self-basing on? You're basing yourself on criteria such as breed and qualifications such as military dog, police dog, service dog. Yes, but these are broad, general qualifications. Can we agree that you can have a police dog both in the US and they be operating on complete different talent levels? One would be barely competent enough to do the job, and another one could be like insane, could be like the 1% or genetic freak that just does everything, by just looking at it. So there's so much gap between it, and unless you go into detail, well, then what are we actually measuring? But that's when you come into the money game, and that's when you start really asking these questions. You say, yeah, but there's no fund to there's no subsidy to investigate this, so they
Yeah.
want money to do and get investigated, and that's why there's nothing really being researched. There is no money given to do these type of researches. So we're going to just go back into the same thing that's been researched all over and over again. The quadrants, the this, the that. And we already know this stuff. That's not innovation. That stuff is almost 100 years old now.
Yes.
That is not
That's
innovation. Quadrants are not innovation. Pavlov is not innovation. We've been knowing for a long time, if you have a neutral signal and you attach an association with it, that the dog's going to respond to this neutral signal. Well, congratulations. We already knew that. That is not innovation, but that's what I mean. What is innovation? Then we're trying to find out the things that are not out there yet. But if you want that validated by somebody with a higher status, such as a professor or a veterinarian or universities, well, then you're going to be looking at subsidies and money. Who's willing to subsidize this?
well, and that's it. Is just the money aspect of it too, and there's also a technical nuance of thin slicing all of these relationships to get it to be able to be replicated, I guess I'll say. And then let me run to the comments here real quick too,
Sure.
because we got them piling up
You
here.
almost forgot it's alive.
Yeah, we got people joining us. No, you're good. And if you guys have any questions, let us know, and I'll get to them. If I don't get to them right away, then I'll get to them. There's Jonas here. Got everybody saying hello. Amanda says that she bought your build drive course.
All right.
And Nino has amazing social media as well as extensive real world experience with high level training. We got their notepad out, ready to take notes. If you guys should go ahead and share this too, if we get more people on here. He says e-collars went off leash my property. It's for safety. Let me see. Bart is also from Belgium. How does Nino style compare to his? So we can chat about Bart real quick if you like.
Yeah, sure.
And then we got a hands up. Same. Yeah, a lot of people are saying e-collars because we're in America here. We do have a big e-collar market, and people do rely on those e-collars quite a bit. In fact, I think that they rely on them too much. And I tell people, look, any technology, any tool, I need the dog to respect and to have a good relationship. As I was saying, the rapport, the power is with that relationship that you have with the handler. And any tool can malfunction, any tool can slip off. There's things that can always go wrong. And so I want the dog to respect and the handler, not the tool. So let's talk about Bart. How is
so I worked with Bart for many years, and let me see what year that was. Between 2007 and 2012, mostly, like 5-6 years, probably maybe 7. That's the period I worked with him at the club. So as I said, I started 2005 Belgian ring clubs. I briefly went to Mondio Ring, went back to Belgian Ring, and then I ended up in Bart's Belgian Ring. Well, it's not Bart's club because he's part of the board, but I ended up in his club. So that's where they compete for Belgian Ring purposes, the NVBK. And Bart was obviously there now and then. He's also got a busy schedule. So I know what he did with his competition dogs. I kind of know his business, like not the recent stuff, I didn't follow him up over the last decade, but I do know the training philosophies. For when I was there, maybe he changed some of these things. I can't tell you like up to date. Is there a difference? Oh, there's a huge difference. Yeah. I think I am a freestyler, as they say. So I don't like props. I don't even like collars to begin with. That doesn't mean I never use collars. Obviously, as a police officer, I did use e-collars. We also have a criteria to meet. We had dogs that we had to purchase who were 2-3-year-olds, 4 years old, and you had to just certify them in 3-4 months. So obviously you're also going to use tools and to secure things. So I am an expert with e-collars. I also used to give an e-collar university based on my expertise with this. But for me, it's never like a thing. I like manual skills. We already elaborated a little bit on this in the beginning. And I like puppies to have a certain approach. I don't like anything strapped on their neck. I like to approach things from a technical level. I'm somebody who over rewards a lot. I like motivation. I like dog's energy. So I try to look for energy exchanges. I never really saw Bart handle a lot of puppies, but he does have a different approach where the dog is more, building on his own things that the dog can, for example, if there's an exercise, he finds it interesting. Well, back in the day, that the dog would come with the solution and therefore be rewarded. So the dog would steer the solution on its own and would be rewarded accordingly. As in the way I train, I lay it out for the dog. So I think very binary, very simplistic is, for me, the dog, a puppy, is just going binary from A to B, right? It's from 0 to 1. So either he wants it or he doesn't want it. He wants to go there or he doesn't want to go there. And I'm going to show him in the most simple form, which is a linear straight line, how to get to its goal. Once they understand this, I'm going to show them the motion. So I'm a movement master, right? So I'm going to show them the motion on how to turn, how to pivot, how to get into angles. So this is my top priority. I don't care about anything else. If the dog can't move, I cannot enable his potential. So for me, movement is so high on the ladder that it will trump anything, any tool, anything, because without technique, I find the dog to not be able to access his full potential. So for me, movement is going to be very stacked high. So I don't know about, because it's been a long time, and actually it's been a long time since somebody asked me about these differences, but I knew back in the day that there's a lot of stuff that I found interesting, but I am somebody who's, like I said, an analyst. I go home and I don't do the things what people tell me. I'm somebody who likes to find things what works for my dog, what I like in energy, speed. Like, I was addicted to track and field, so that was my first passion. How I can get the speed, explosivity, how I can get that into my dog. So my dog could be the extension of my obsession in speed and in performance. Don't forget, track and field was all about performance. It was all about how can I get fast and better and more explosive and dynamic. So that for me was a big thing. I didn't care about anything else, which has led to this buildup of skills, because that's the only thing I thought of in the beginning. But then obviously you have drive control, you have healing. So there's so many components. You have grip, you have so many technical things that it's so fascinating. So I think we have a different approach on things, where I would say, because it's hard to define, are you a positive only trainer? Well, obviously I'm not, but I'm also not a balanced trainer, how you would see it in the balanced dog training world. For in my master path, for example, the MVP, there is no e-collar classes even, although it's on a pro level. So you can go in from a beginner, but you can also come in as a pro, and we're not even going to discuss e-collars, because for me, it is the combination of skills. And if you want that overlay with e-collars, well, that's great, but it's no use, like you say, you also mentioned it, if you do not have the primary skills first. Because I said anybody can push the button. Right? Give me the marker, give me the leash, give me the e-collar, then give me the food, give me the ball, give me the commands, and let's get rolling. And you will see that it implodes really easy, even with professionals. If you give them all these tools and you tell them, bring them to me in a way that is so efficient that you can make this dog better in literally 1, 2 to 5 minutes, it's not going to happen unless you have mastery is the key of all these other skills that needs a combination first, and then you can start thinking about the e-collar. But I do understand, in a business model where you have to solve a problem of a pet that is being offered to you, and you offer the service of giving solutions to pet problems, that the tool would be almost your first choice, because you're on a time restriction. The dog is being delivered or brought to you has no foundation. You have no time to build a foundation. And therefore, you know that the tools work because they're based on the principles that we know that work. A dog that is getting negative reinforcement is less likely to show certain behavior. A dog that is getting aversive stim is, going to stop what he was doing and just do something else. So these are very straightforward principles. We know they work, so we're going to use them. And that's where innovation stops, and dog training becomes a business model. All right, I have no problems with a business model, but if the business model now becomes the norm of how the industry should move forward when it comes to dog training skill development, then I do have a problem, because that's when I say the e-collar is completely overrated as well. Because let's say, put it this way, I have Rocky. Rocky's trained with an e-collar. He's also my police dog. He was one of the 1%ers. But all the work that I put in before I put it in the e-collar, nobody saw. If you can let a dog walk backwards for 100 meters, if you can make him come explosively into the bite, come back, these are not things the e-collar are going to do for you. But the problem is, once you use the e-collar and you become dependent of it because it's a strong dog, he's a high drive dog, you want to make sure like the security and stuff, then the thing that people see is only the e-collar. You know, because now reels, everybody has viral reels, but back in the day, nobody had viral reels. You'd be one of the lucky few 15 years ago to have a reel that would have over 1,000 shares when it comes to dog training. And people only talked about the tool. I was like, that's interesting. Because for me, it was obvious it wasn't the tool, but not for people because they could only see the tool. And therefore, that would be the only explanation of the performance. And that's when I went, okay, there's something missing here. Because if people start looking for the answers in the tool, that is actually not the answer. Because I actually ran tests also, and I had my students, and I had them tell me on the videos, tell me if the dog is getting stim or not. Like, and if it does, give like stripes, put stripes every time you see it or you think, and it was all over the place. There was no way, because look at this. This is where it becomes really interesting. The way I used the stimulation was completely invisible. It was impossible to see. Even I couldn't see it. I worked with a broken collar for 3 months and I didn't even know it. I didn't know it because I turned it on, but the whole thing, as soon as it made contact, it actually lost contact. So anyways, I was thinking it was working while it wasn't. So if you see the e-collar as a performance enhancer, there is no way you could actually visibly see it that the dog is getting stimmed unless you would start timing the precision or looking at details. So for me, it became a performance enhancer and a more of a security thing than actually a tool that's being used to teach a dog something. Because I don't need the tool to teach my dog to do something. Look at the lab. The lab is faster than any of these Malinois out there. And he's never seen this tool. He doesn't know the tool, so he's never been trained with it. Same goes for RJ. RJ has a equally good out. Oh, he's still here? Oh, I think we lost Bill.
Sorry about that. My computer just did a little glitch thing. Are you okay?
Yeah, I thought maybe you lost connection.
No, yeah, I don't know what happened just now, but I was like, oh my gosh, where am I at? I'm out of the studio.
So hear me out. Now it becomes interesting. So I have Rocky's son. Rocky's son is almost genetically the same dog. And I train him now purposely without an e-collar, without tools whatsoever. I want to challenge myself. Okay, where is the difference? Where am I going to start missing this tool? You know what I found? My out is better than it ever was on the electronic out. Boom. How is that even possible? Well, it is. That's why I put all this documentation in my program, because the proof is always in the pudding. I could say, yeah, positive only this, but I actually invited one of the best positive only trainers in the world. And it was like, because we did a duet, me, Rocky, and then her with her dog. Like, it was insane. And I was so intrigued by it. And I asked this lady, Manuela, I said, could you tell me why you are so good and getting this result and never touch a tool? Like, because obviously that's a question you want to ask somebody who truly doesn't use tools, right?
Yes.
Here's where it becomes interesting. I said, can you write it down maybe for me? Because she had difficulty expressing herself in English. I said, maybe you can write it down and explain to me. All right, she writes me 3 pages full of information. And she says, here is why I get these results. Aren't you interested now, Bill? Like, what did she write down? That's the blueprint to success in positive only training. She wrote a complete breakdown of her marker. But obviously, it wasn't a marker. The marker is not going to get you to that level. There's no way that a prop can get you to that level. One singularity, one skill is not going to get you to that type of level where she was competing and winning competitions without ever touching a tool with high drive dogs. You know, so there was something else. So I asked her, I said, look, I understand your marking, because I met her, of course. I said, can you go dig a little bit deeper and tell me? You know what? She couldn't. But I'll tell you why. Because it's in her subconscious. Her subconscious is combining all these skills that she's unable to define when I asked them. Because when I asked them, she thinks of the tangibles, which makes it the scientific explanation on why you get the result. So she's teaching about quadrants, while I know it's nothing to do about the quadrants. You can be a professor in your quadrants, you still won't have this result. But it was undefinable, because the subconscious is operating these things. And it's hard for people, unless they have studied these skills, to actually talk about them. That's why training with a world champion will not make you a world champion, unless you are an analyst who does nothing else but assessments on people, skills, and you're an expert in this field, and then you could start questioning and going deeper into this. Okay, forget about this dog for a second here. What is this? What is this? What is this? One of the things that you can't see, nobody will ever see, is analytical skill. Oh, analytical skill. Oh, it sounds pretty fancy. What is this expensive word, analytical skill, for dog training? Well, it's to observe and to see what is actually happening. And not just on a dog basis, on a handler basis as well. Because if you're truly skilled in analytics, it's not just operational, it's also human based. That means you can also relate to it with people. You can analyze people and you can analyze things, problems not related to people. Something malfunctioning requires analytics for you to solve the problem. But on a human level, you can also be an analyst. So unless you're letting experts loose on profiling people at this level, who you're never going to know, or you don't even know what to ask to begin with. What are you going to ask this person? Right, world champion. What did you eat today this morning? Because that was a really good training. I mean, what else are you going to ask him? He's even unable to explain to you why.
Well, and it's also when we are analyzed, we examine something methododic. Dude, I can't even say this word in detail, right? and
Mhm.
and we get down to the very small details. Do you know what this reminds me of, Nino? And I've always said this is like dog training is an art and a science, and that imagination, like you were just talking about, is crucial, especially when it comes to art. Like imagine
Mm,
going to a great painter, or I'm a glass artist, so I have a glass studio.
mm,
I make glass art, and I have some friends that are some of the best glass artists in the world, the most talented, and I've learned from them. Do you think
mhm,
that I could reproduce what they reproduce just because I went and learned from them?
mm-mm.
Like it goes into like there is something, and if I mean I can get the technical aspects of it, I can analyze what they're doing, but there's also these nuances that we don't even consider, that come from them, and it's also just like you said, the subconscious, something's coming out
Mm.
that has built this project. And when we look at even the scientific method, the first step of the method is to observe. And when we're at the environment of the dog and the handler, we have to consider both, and we have to
Yeah.
scrutinize and examine, study it, and just let the details reveal themselves. But also, how do we put that in practice so that we can get better? But also, how do we do this with multiple dogs? How do we do this? There's
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Nobody cares about this like holistic message of innovation and stuff like that. If you have a wild puppy in front of you, then
yeah, you
nobody's
want
interested in this, right? So the thing is, like, who are we actually serving? We're serving people that just want a companion, and this companion better not be out of control and start biting people and dogs.
yeah, they want a cool
Very
dog.
simplistic. All right, great. So why don't we give them then the skills, the tool set, even the tools, that's not literally the tools, but just why don't we give them the simplistic approach on how to get things done? I think that is more important than talking about quadrants for a half day. Just how do you get things done? Okay, can you hold a piece of food? Oh, yeah, of course I can. Well, then show me. Show me how you hold a piece of food. Yeah, they just then and then they put it like a coin machine. Like, no, it's not how you actually deliver. So you see, it's same as all right. You want to brand yourself, and you can do this and that, and yeah. But if you don't even know how to open a laptop, don't even talk about branding. You see. So let's go first back to the simplicity of then what is it that you do, and how do you put it in your hand? How do you turn it, and what is it going to mean to the dog? Okay, so you're going to simplify things in a way that you can't miss it. I can't miss it. Like, okay, that's how it works. Why everything needs to be so complex? I don't know, because obviously for you and for other professionals talking about all this, yeah, very interesting. Yeah, watch this podcast all day. But people that just got their dog, they're not interested in this podcast. They want a problem solution. Yeah. So, and this problem is the problem didn't even begin, but it's already a problem. The problem is I don't know what to do first. Should
Yeah,
I walk him first? Okay, give you example. Okay, bought a puppy, 12 weeks old. Puppy is a big breed, so he's like 15 kilos. I don't know how much pounds that is, but he's
35 pounds.
pulling. He's pulling. What do I do? And then obviously you can go on YouTube and I can see pulling solutions in literally one session. All right. If you think you're going to solve a pulling problem in one session and think that has actually value in it, and you're not going to pay a price for it, not in money, but a price for it in relationship, well, you're out of your mind. So that means people don't even understand that once you get a puppy, you should assume it's going to pull. What do you mean it's going to pull? We should just let it pull. Well, you can set things up so it doesn't pull that hard. So that means, let's say, for example, you get a flexi, and the flexi is long enough to elevate your speed a little bit when it starts running really fast. So you can catch up without actually catching up. You see, you give yourself some slack to catch up. That's how I walk a puppy, because I can't expect a puppy to not pull. So I know it's going to pull. So I set myself up that if it's going to run, I at least have the ability to catch up a little bit with him. So whenever he would get to the end of the leash, he wouldn't make a somersault backwards, or he wouldn't just like start like scratching his nails on it. You know what I mean? So it's a simple solution to actually something that is not even a problem, unless you make it a problem. You know how you make it a problem? By making your dog not pull, by putting a leash on its neck and pulling back. You just created a problem. Why on earth would any puppy try to synchronize with your speed? Would you believe that is a puppy's priority? Interesting. You're moving slower than I am. Why don't I just sync with you and we're both getting rid of a problem? That's not how it works. So the question is not how do I stop it from pulling? The question is how do you synchronize? Interesting question. How do you synchronize?
Yeah.
Well, you synchronize not by going on walks, by teaching a contact heel. What is a contact heel then? Well, here's where it gets interesting also. Well, that's actually a Belgian ring exercise. Oh my God, you're going to do a Belgian ring exercise with a pet? Well, look at it this way. Break it back down to simplicity. Why is that such an interesting exercise? Well, every dog should have a source of interest, whether that be his food, or he has to be or she has to be motivated to do something. So the only thing you actually have to teach them is you put in the middle, like you just show them that if they synchronize one little step, or in the beginning just align with you, release. How easy can it be? You're just building yourself now the first step of the most insane good street heel you will ever have in your life. What does an insane good street heel mean? What is the criteria? That means off leash, without e-collar, without any damn tools. You can walk this dog from A to B, from B to C, from C to D. You can make turns, you can make pivots, and the dog is glued to you. And he's got his tail wagging, and he is not worried about all your turns and your hooks you're going to make, because he understands what alignment and synchronicity means. Okay, got it. What about other dogs, and what about cars? You see, now you already thinking high level, but you can't even have a dog activated on his little source that he likes while he is aligned with you. What are we doing? You know? So why do we have all these tools to pull back? Oh, it's got to be sharper here. But give it more stem, because look, you can't do one thing. You can't expect then the other thing. Well, obviously there's multiple methods. There's nothing wrong with there being multiple methods. But if that one method is overruling all the other ones because it's the easier way and the way everybody does it, well, I'm checking out. I don't care what everybody does. If I would care what everybody does, we wouldn't sit here and have a conversation, because I want to do what works best for my ethics and values. And e-collar training and prong collar training for little young dogs does not belong in my ethics when it comes to development. So for me in development, there is no corrections. So that means you're a positive only trainer. No, I'm telling you, there is behavior. For example, this little puppy now takes a chump out of my thumb and it's like, he broke all my skin. Well, that's interesting, but I'm a positive only trainer, so I can't correct them. Are you crazy? Like, of course I'm going to get them by the scruff and tell them like, hey, knock it off, you know? Obviously.
Okay.
But that has nothing to do. Oh, but now I'm going to develop my street heel. There's no corrections there. How can I ever correct a puppy if the puppy doesn't even know the concept of what then it means to align? That's obviously going to be motivation, it's going to be teachings, is going to be fun. So he can have his correction here for biting my thumb off through the skin. And then the next second, we're going into development, and it's going to be a completely positive only experience for the dog.
I like to hear you say that you would correct that dog, because it's like this is now associative, and it becomes a consequence for this behavior, instead of the dog wanting to do what he wants and then getting corrected and you know what? I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of the long line stuff and letting the dog hit the end of the line, and so I'm learning from you, Nino. And this is the reason why I have these conversations. Is I mean, selfishly, it's for me, so I can become a dog trainer
Well, I'm
and a
happy
better
you're
dog,
honest.
right? But
Yeah.
if people can gain knowledge from this, and
Mhm.
mostly the people that watch this are either very passionate about dogs
Yeah.
or professionals, right? And so that's the
Yeah.
other aspect. If I can gain knowledge and other can gain knowledge from watching this after the fact or during, then that's why we do these live streams. So, and what my
But
mind is. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, to go back to that problem, because I know a lot of people are waiting for the solution to their problems. You know what I asked them? All right, list me all the weaknesses your dog possesses. Everything you hate or you dislike about his behavior. Can you list that? Okay, now the list becomes long. All right, he goes out the door first. Right? Okay, that's not like an insanely big problem, but anyways, okay. Dog never focuses on me, like has no attention whatsoever. All right. When I recall, obviously he's deaf. He doesn't even like respond, nothing in his muscle fibers or even reacting. On top of that, when he sees another dog, he goes through the roof, he starts barking and lunging, and if he could, he probably would fight him. Okay. On top of that, he jumps on me. On top of that, he's just like he jumps on my furniture. He's all over the place. Okay, you got a bunch of problems. Congratulations, get in the queue because you have a lot of people that have similar problems. Okay, now let's talk about what is the counter. The counter to all these problems. You just listed 5. Now, what are you going to put in the other bucket that are actual skills that you taught the dog? And by I mean taught the dog that you actually know he would do in certain setups and circumstances that you can create where he would actually do these things for you without going on the street and seeing these dogs. Well, then you quickly find out there is actually nothing to counter with. There is no foundation of anything whatsoever. But here you are as a professional having to solve 5 big problems for them, and there is nothing to counter with when it comes to skills. If you cannot counter with skills, like I said, you're going back to your business model. Well, let me just counter it with a bunch of tools then, because that's the business. The name of the business is I solve your problem, and the money that I charge for it has more value than the money in your pocket, right? Why
Yeah.
else would I pay you to solve my problem? Okay,
Yes.
you're creating a solution. That means that solution to my problem is worth more than the money in my pocket and still owning the dog. So I'm going to give you the money and you get rid of my problem, right?
Yes.
That's
Absolutely.
called a business model, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not called a training method. You see? So
Yeah.
here's what a discrepancy is okay, now you're doing things with dogs that you would never do with your own dog. No, because you're solving problems. And when you're a dog trainer, you actually try to create skills and you develop a dog so you wouldn't have to solve problems. You see? So that approach is completely different. You anticipate on the dog doing all these things. You remember I said, I assume the puppy is going to pull. So I'm prepared for a schedule to train him. So in the end, I'm not going to have a dog pulling. I'm going to have a dog aligned with me and healing and prancing and doing all the beautiful stuff. You see? So I know what's going to happen, but these people just like go and feed first, have a bunch of problems. You solve the problem. I paid you. Like, do it. And
But that
here is now we find ourselves like we need our tools. Somebody better not talk about these tools, you know? Hey, you forget about the controversy these tools created in the first place. Why is it even in talks of banning this stuff? Well, because there's always idiots, of course, using stuff they shouldn't be using because they don't have skill. So maybe it would be great if you can regulate the profession instead of worrying about the e-collar always. But nonetheless, the e-collar, look, I told you I train with special forces and I worked with them. One of my own dogs, one of the sons of Rocky, is in special units, special forces. This dog is getting trained with an e-collar. For sure, he is. He got camera dogs too being trained with an e-collar. I have nothing against e-collar, but you're now talking about the top tier one, right? Using tools in a setting what is required to have the most amazing control. Like you want your dog to be rock solid in circumstances that are for most people not even imaginable. So, well, that it's a good thing these tools exist, and when it's used sophisticatedly in a combination with your skills, it is a cheat almost. It's a cheat code. It is a performance enhancer like you've never seen one before. I'm gonna give you example. I'm going with RJ now to competition because I've trained him with my method and it works really well. He's got his sprints, he's got his sweet heel, he's got his positive only out. Like he's killing it. Yes, but the competition is designed to overperform with a dog without ever giving any rewards. So look at it this way. If you've trained with tools, there's a consequence for not doing, right? Because then your good dog is going to get some stim or he's going to get corrected or whatever. I don't have this leverage because either he wants it, he's going to do it, or he doesn't, right? How on earth am I supposed to compete with you in a number of sequences that are designed to find the flaws in your training? The program is designed not to make you succeed. The program is designed to show you where you failed. So think of it this way. If I don't go into competition with you and you are an e-collar trainer and I'm a trainer who never used it, well, then my prerogative should be give me 2 rewards during this entire sequence I have to complete. That's my leverage, you see? Because if you take away my leverage, I got nothing left. So of course you're going to create a sequence at some point in time that I cannot compete with because my dog will be so far off, he's going to make a mistake, and I'm unable to communicate again. As where you had communicated remotely, literally then, remotely, continuously, to show and to guide him, and now you're going to competition, it's just going to look like all the simulations you've done before. So it's not a fair competition. So the people that are training positive only and are winning trials, for me, that's a triple win. Because you're going against performance enhancers. Like, guys, if you right now claim that your world champion that you're a fan of is not using an e-collar, you're out of your mind. They have to almost, because how else are you going to compete on that level if people are using performance enhancers? It's almost like taking drugs in sports. There's a reason they check your urine samples and stuff, because they don't want you to have a performance enhancer, because you would have like a serious advantage over other people. And that's on the top levels, world champion. Of course, these are good trainers. So whatever they do is a performance enhancer. For sure.
Well, I think that's why we can learn so much from positive only trainers. We can learn from everybody, and the only time that I would say that balanced training is when you were just talking about those 5 behaviors that are the problems, right? It's like rushing the door, no attention on me, jumping all over the furniture. And like, to me, that's when balance, it becomes very important, because now let's balance what's the other side of this behavior. You're listing the bad stuff. Now, how do we balance that out? What do we do to achieve balance? To me, I don't like the term balanced trainer, because whenever I think balanced, I'm thinking like balanced on like a log or something like that. You're about ready to fall off, or you're not on steady ground, right? To me, I would prefer eclectic. I know it's not probably a good term that a lot of people use, but eclectic dog trainer, like learning from everybody. There's pearls of wisdom that we can pull from methodologies, but there's also a degree of comfort based on your ethics and what you're willing to do with this animal, and how to prepare the animal by communicating, synchronizing with them, and then going forward with the relationship that is based on real conversation, real communication that is meaningful to not just the human but the dog as well.
I like that, because I do believe that if you're being called positive trainer versus balanced, I think just the tone of it, positive, that makes more sense. There's something wrong with being called a balanced trainer to begin with. It does sounds like, whatever he does can get easily quite unbalanced if he doesn't get his shit together, then it's unbalanced, of course, and unbalanced does feel like a negative association to me, like something, I don't know, I'd rather be called positive. But then again, for me, positive only almost sounds like the extremists. That's when you get the whole I don't want to call names here, but there's these people colliding on a YouTube level with millions of views. That's not even in our league, but there's 2 prominent trainers in the US that happen to have a complete different idea on dog training. And one does seminars and does aggressive dogs, and another one just talks on YouTube and has no legitimacy to speak, sort of speaking. And now these two worlds are supposed to come together. And no, that's like, then I understand they start calling it balanced, because yeah, obviously that's one and that's the other one. We're not in any of them, so let's just call ourselves them balanced. But it's forgetting to then, like, how do you say, define then better what that balance means, just as you were doing. Like, yes, you learn from other people and you try to find new ways and innovate and, you know, work on your own skills. You see, that's a whole different name. If you would say, yes, but I'm a multi-skill trainer or whatever, that sounds different to me than positive only balanced. You know,
Yes.
positive only, you almost think of these activists, you know, what e-collars, all right, put them in jail. That's how it started in Europe, you know, these positive only gangs, you know, trying to ban stuff like education. No, there's no such thing as education. Ban this stuff, you know, you're not going to fry dogs. So all this polarization has led to, well, what is this? Like, oh my God, like, well, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah, it turns
why
into,
on earth? Yes, that's what I'm saying. I started the conversation on this podcast with you. Do you understand that whatever you guys are doing, you would go to jail for it in Europe? And I don't mean anybody to go to jail for training a dog and helping people. Do not misunderstand or misinterpret my words. Whatever this business model is helping dogs. I understand. But it becomes only vague when the business model is being perceived as a training, as a true training method. Obviously, nobody's going to reach out to the tool first. But that's not being discussed anymore, because the business model trumps every training model, because that's all we speak of. Well, who has the most franchises in the United States when it comes
Sit means
to?
sit.
Oh yeah, Bissett means Sid. You have Keenan. Yeah, so you have a. Well, what do you use? I
E-collars
think
all
I
the
use.
time.
But yeah, well, there you go. You see. So now the obvious becomes, what I know is what is the most out there. Well, obviously, e-collar. So people have a reflex. I need a dog, so I'm going to need an e-collar as well to begin with. And you can't blame them, because the business model has become the training personification.
Yeah. Well, and
Who else
I
is on the barricades?
right, and you know, that's why I love, because you're going to get clients that are like, I don't want to put that on my dog. And now what? If you rely solely on the e-collar, and your client has ethics that deter them from putting this on their dog, you know, then what are you going to do? Are you going to be like, okay, no more hard-earned money for me? You have to have the knowledge base that you can go, and also the expectations that you can communicate with how to get to where the client wants to go, without using that tool. And at the end of the day, we're being hired as service to our clients, and the relationship is there. That's their dog. And if they are uncomfortable, it's just like when you were watching first on the ring with the harsh corrections, and you know, sometimes there is a time and a place, just like you're saying, for, I call it a come to Jesus. Like if the dog's biting me or something like that, like, no, we don't do this. This stops and needs to be met head on. But then there's also, what do we do next? How do we build the relationship in a trusting manner? And what do you think about play? What do you think about play and in your training? How do you approach that? Do you play with your dogs? Do you think that it's like the luring and stuff that you do is that, and the body movements? You know, this also reminds me so much of a dance. You know, when I tell people advanced healing is like dancing with your dog. And a dance is an art. Dance is nuanced, and you have to have every movement. And if you get to the high level of those choreographers that are teaching dance, you think that somebody just did the dance perfect, and then the person that's choreographer, that the choreographer that comes in is like, no, do this, like, from the outside, from a person that doesn't have the eyes to see it, you think that it was perfect, but the person that is technical minded comes in and tweaks it for the precision aspect that is required for that high level.
Yeah. So to come with your first question, yes, play is obviously the addiction. Your puppy will be addicted to play, but so am I. So we share that addiction. I am addicted to playing with my dog. There's nothing else I enjoy more than getting a ball out, getting a seat, something that I know he likes the most. The more he likes it, the more I like that game that he likes. We're in it together on this game. So it's not like he possesses this and now I can't take it back, or I have drive issues now because he's possessive or he's aggressive, or no. Is for me, the synergy is sharing with him what he loves the most. So it's an energy transfer, sort of speaking.
Love it.
So play with, that's the addiction. If you're not having fun, then having a dog isn't fun. So if you're not having fun training them, what is the purpose of having them? Just to stroke their backs. They need purpose. And for them, purpose is a simulation of what they love most. For some dogs, that is hunting. For some dogs, that is moving with for food. For some dogs, that is solving puzzles. For anything you can think of, detection, look, name it. Whatever purpose you give is a great purpose if the dog enjoys it. But you're also responsible of how to enjoy something. There's many students that I have that came in and said, look, my dog does not have food or ball drive, right? One of the, or prey drive, the two biggest motivators to teach your dog. And they ended up all having it in abundance. But the way they approached it wasn't the way the dog was going to create any interest for them. Just giving them higher value and raw, or just quantity, is not going to create that. You see? So that's where the skill levels also start playing a part. Yes, just fetching or throwing your ball and the dog fetching is not creating more drive necessarily. The addiction to the game doesn't come from the prop or the food, So it's not the quantity or the brand or the ball or the tug. It's what you do with it. And the way you play the game and the way you interact is how you establish this relationship and how you establish the synergy. And this trumps any competition that I've ever done or any police work I've ever done. When my dog chooses to synchronize with me, chooses to come with solutions that he can do because of what I taught him in a technical way to move and how he was able to find an angle, this is for me, whoa, that's a revelation. My dog finding a solution because I've created options for him to come up with these solutions. That is like, that trumps anything. Like, and I had deployments real time. I had the mayor calling me, with congratulations and like all the accolades for doing the most crazy, insane apprehension that you can imagine. High chase, car chase, yeah, and then doing an intervention with the dog, grabbing him out of the window, like insane stuff that you see on YouTube and the movies. I've done that, and I'm telling you, of course, it gets you on a high, but truly the addiction is sharing the things that your dog loves and seeing him do things he wouldn't be able to do without you. How good is that? So, and that is
that requires the imagination as well, both on your part and that dog's part too, to imagine, to live in that moment with the animal, to play, to use these high value items in a way that we can increase. I love that you said that you're addicted to the play. That to me, before I even train a dog, once a dog's playing with me, I know that we're going to be successful. I know that now that I have a different element of this dog's trust, and so
there's somebody in your chat asking, but on a client point of view, and this is a great valid question, on a client point of view, the client, there you go, wants results quickly and at the same time spending less amount of money. So the business model needs tools for results. And here's where you can start talking about, okay, there's offers create business, right? Isn't that how it works? Without an offer, there is no business. So they have to choose, right? They have to make a decision on your offering. So if you're more specific about what you offer and the options, and you can break it down to what it truly is. Let's say, for example, you get in a client who doesn't have a recall. I think that's a very common thing.
Yes.
My first question would be, okay, you don't have a recall. Let me explain to you really quickly the two types of recalls, the two extremes. You're in the kitchen and you're putting food in the dog's bowl and you recall him. That is also called a recall. Is he likely to come? Yes, he's very likely to come. When he goes and chases a squirrel or his rabbit or another dog or the cat, he gets off leash. Is that also recall? Yes, that's also recall. Okay, one of them is basic. The other one is extremely advanced. It's the pinnacle of your drive switch, visual switch, movement switch, and finish. The whole nine, basically in one stupid word, which is calling his name. Those are two different things. If you're going to offer these two things at the same price point, I think there is something wrong with your offer. I think there's really something wrong with your offer. So, because if you break it down and you tell this person, look, for me to simulate a drive equation where I can recall my dog and he would be motivated to come, not scared. For me to create the setup is going to require XYZ, things and time and staff and setups. All right. So this will require this much time in this equation. And we're not going to sacrifice the dog's trust, so you do want to install at least a foundation of the dog being in a high drive equation, coming out of it, experiencing something, and then being able to revisit it. So you don't want to make it an end game. You want to make it a continuous game where there's an incentive for coming back to you and going back to what he loves.
Yes.
Okay, but this is a foundation. Without this foundation, ethically, I wouldn't want to use tools. I will use tools, but not because you pay me, because I believe with the foundation combined with the tool, we can find a solution for you, which is something I can identify myself with on an ethical standpoint. You see, so if you explain them that this is what it's going to require from me, my staff, my team, my business to facilitate your dog with that type of training, that's what I stand behind. If you want to go across the street, have your dog zapped, good for you. That's not my type of business. I couldn't conduct a business. I'm not behind incongruency of my morals and ethics and values. So if you are, let's say, for example, you're like, yeah, but I got to take the money. You got to put bread on the table. You can. But are you going to last doing this job for 25 years plus 30 years? Forget it. No way. You're going to find an exit. You're going to have somebody else do the dirty work. I've had students have multiple businesses and beg me, can you find me a way that I can elevate so I can do different things and just show off with my demo dog and let somebody else do that dirty work? You know?
Yeah,
And
that's important.
That's not the position you want to be in. So it's also on us to educate people on what this price breakdown actually consists of then, and why it is either more expensive or why it's going to take more time, or why it is important for them also that their dog gets a better standard of training and not just a tool. Because we know the impact of the tool is massive. Actually, if you go into science, it says extreme, like how to say it with the exact same words again, is behavior can have I can't come up with the exact same sentence, but you can have extreme changes in behavior based on the reinforcement given as a negative reinforcement or corrections. Everything can change for you. Yes, but it comes with the price. And my question would be the same as when you go out with the pulling puppy. Are you willing to pay the price? Because if I'm getting a puppy, I'm not willing to pay that price of jerking him like this the first second he goes out. That's not a price I'm willing to pay. And yes, he's probably not going to pull then, maybe not even the first few weeks. Maybe he'll be healed forever. I'm not going to pay that price. So consciously, people have to look. The thing, the whole problem is business went so out of control that basically everybody's aiming now to do things, better and faster and charge less money or more money, regardless how you want to see it. So it has become big business, So a lot of young people got to do this type of work, and the managers, which were the previous dog trainers, are doing the admin. Oh, you take this, you do that. So the grinding, the work that is being done is actually being performed by underskilled people, and they can't like sensitize people as in, oh, but I'm doing this and that. No, it's like, has to be done. Here's a tool, right? Get it done, get the job done. You know what I mean? So this is an ethical problem also, as in some kind of way, without judging people who are offering a service, because obviously if you're not going to offer it, somebody else going to offer it. And this is what keeps the whole thing alive. When there's nothing wrong with keeping this thing alive, but there is something wrong with going backwards in skills and having more board and trains all over the world, and these dogs all getting worse. Because we obviously all know cases where a certain trainer did XYZ and the dog came out worse. You think I don't have students that said, I spend a fortune on board and train. This is my result. My dog is afraid. He's still not listening. He's stressed out. He's not even taking my rewards anymore. Like, when he's still showing a problem when he can, like they're in desperation mode. So I also get them. So I know, okay, it does happen. Obviously it does happen. So, and how do you control this? Well, this elevation of skill starts at the very bottom, because these people if you cannot even have the foundational skills, such if you cannot comprehend what it means to reward and how to motivate or how to give leverage with your rewards that you want to give, then what are you doing? So if you know more about how to manipulate this complex machine with buttons, but you don't know how to put food in your hand and create a sort of linear straight line to the dog to get him motivated to do something, I think there is something wrong with our education for dog trainers.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to note, like I've seen it on both sides. I've seen somebody been, too not understanding and being too forthcoming with the positive without and not having the good structure. And I've also seen it where people have been too too harsh with the structure, right? And it's important to realize too, just like you were saying, is like, yeah, we can do this, but for how long? And there's different types of money in this world. There's a money that pays you, the money that pays your bills, but there's that money also that pays your brain. There's that money that pays your heart, right? And I think that when you sacrifice the money that pays your heart and you really don't like what you're doing here, then you're not going to last that long. You're going to want to get the heck out of there as soon as possible. And I believe the longer that we're in the industry, the more that we start to realize, hey,
there's a lot of
well,
resentment. Yeah.
and I say on this podcast a lot, the most powerful word, 3 words that a human being can say, I was wrong, right? And to take and to look at yourself, and that takes laying down that ego and saying, hey, look, there might be a better way to do this. There might be, I'm always tinkering. There's no finish line here, folks. We're always learning. And just like with the analyst mindset, we're always thin slicing situations. There's an infinite amount of knowledge that's out there. And now the question is, are you willing to study more, to change? And that's once new information is presented, you got to be willing to change your mind. You got to be willing to apply techniques that might work, that might not work in a situation, but also understand it on a deeper level. I'm going to run to the comments here because we're getting backed up, so I want to just make sure.
Meanwhile, there's something looking at it. I needed an overlay for a point I wanted to make, so I went on Google and I put in hard correction to a dog. I don't know if you ever YouTube that, but you always come to like the first channels that pop up. There's not the channels that I want to use as references because these are people with, they're renowned or whatever. But I was going into the comment section and just see like, oh my God, it's like, oof, it was pretty brutal. And then I was thinking, because then I saw thousands of comments. So, and I assumed, okay, people probably not going to really respect this, but it was insane how many people saw this as a revelation. Somebody who finally did what was supposed to be done a long time ago and stepped up, and they were forever grateful that this person did these type of things. And that's where I feel, okay, I can understand from people's desperation. That's how you feel, and that's how maybe you think things should be handled. But in my opinion, it's not, because I obviously see more. My imagination gives me more options than what I see in that video. But the contrast is so big that, if you go start showing your flashy things, nobody cares. They have a problem, and that problem is being solved on the spot, and this person had the guts to show it on video and not care about the backlash. And you'd be surprised how much support they get instead of backlash. So whoever out there is screaming, yeah, but we're using too many colors, apparently not enough, because that Trump's e-collar use 10x and was completely okay. Like a lot of people praised, respected this, like loved this stuff. So of course, if anybody with a business mind would read this and say, let me look at this from an analytical point of view, what is happening here, and is this something I can replicate with a minimum effort and do this action, I think I can do this. You're putting the door wide open. Of course, somebody going to see a business opportunity and say, well, I can do that too. And maybe I'm not going to get 5 million views on this thing, but if 5 million people pay me to do it, that's equally good. You know where I'm going. So, but this is what we see, because on the other spectrum is, well, then who's getting millions of views also? Well, then you see somebody who's like, but they're not dealing with the same problem. So of course, the one person is going to say, shut your mouth, because you're just training some dolls in your back room and your living room, and I'm handling real life problems. But everywhere in between, there's nothing, So there's
Yeah.
these two
It's
hating on each
extreme.
other. Yeah, yeah. But there's nothing really to find because none of them supporters are going to go to the other side, right? It's not going to happen. However good the arguments are, it's not going to happen. So this whole discussion has actually taken the industry and the mid, like the mid class, however you want to call it, then they're also getting pushed into this discussion because one you have it's like you have to pick sides. Well, I'm not. Well, I use tools, so well, then I probably belong to this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and this is the thing. We're not talking anymore about skills development, innovation. Like, no, this is for the 0.01 percenters who actually want to be craftsmen, who want to offer a service like the person Jean says, oh, clients are not loyal. They just go to another guy. Yeah, who has the balls then to amp up the price, give less offering, take more time to do it, and actually hopefully get the same outcome, which is the dog stopping with his actions. Like logic here is gone, which is a different problem, like logical thinking and dog training. But I see the problem. It's not an easy answer to it, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
That's why we
yeah,
have this discussion. That's why we talk about it. And after this conversation, I'm going to reflect and and I'm sure I'll have more questions. But it's important that we do talk about this stuff, that we do say, and I do want to go to this comment because it is important. Clients are not loyal. They only want results. Just like I was
mhm,
saying earlier, we are hired to fix a problem. We are hired after the fact when the damage is done a
yeah,
lot of
mhm,
times, like, and they don't care about, they don't care about Napopo, they don't care about Keeler, they don't care about STS as far as like a client or a pet dog client, right? They just want, how do I stop
of course.
this behavior, rushing the door, barking on the leash, being reactive, going potty in the house. Like, I need these. This is what I'm hiring you for. These three things, and once we've had those addressed, then I'm done with you. Like,
Okay,
that's it.
but Bill, let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a store needing something and walking out with something extra or something else?
Yeah, all the time. You guys don't have Costco's there. Do you have Costco's in Belgium?
No, but I know the store, so that's what happens all
Dude.
the time because the offerings are so tempting that you're very interested, especially if there's a promotion or something you think I can use this. So there
Yeah,
is actually, do not underestimate the customer's intelligence also. There is something such as if you can explain what you do and if people see value in your offer, who says they would go across the street? Maybe they'll be your most loyal customer you ever had just because
yeah,
you were willing to risk to lose that customer. It's okay to get a no. Why not? It's
yeah,
okay to get a no. If it's okay to get a no, what's there to lose? Because look at it this way. Let's say you're double as expensive as somebody else. You'll just double the price. Oh, I'm going to lose half my customers, but that means you still have the same revenue because the fact your price was double, but you kept half of your customers means you're actually now doing less and making the same revenue. So, what I'm trying to say is it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make less money if you have a different price point or different offer where maybe less people would be interested in. Well, it all depends what you want. You're looking at volume, of course, lower the price. You follow economics like high demand, low price, offer. Okay, let's put on volume. So that means you're going to need more trainers. Hire more trainers, get more facilities open. We got to push out. You got to push out dogs that are trained to solve. The trainers that solve these problems. So it kind of depends on what you want to excel because what is your 5 year plan? Where do you want to be in 5 years? You want to do the exact same thing, you not expand, not become any better at what you do. So you got to have a plan. So what you do today might not be your plan for in 5 years.
yeah,
So if you know that today, you're gonna have to work on your skills, you're gonna have to work on your business ideas, on your branding, on your marketing, on your delivery, on your message, on your videos, on your social media. There's so many things that you're going to be looking at because you're in business. You're not just training dogs, you're in business. And business always requires a number of components that are maybe not relevant to dog training, but they are essential part of it because the better your offer is, the more appreciation you can get and the more joy and love you will find in your offer that you created. So I wouldn't create an offer I'm not 100% behind. But I do feel the pain. If you're in this industry, not everybody has the privilege to only train trainers, because a trainer that wants to be trained, I'm not dealing with the same problem than you, Bill, or than John, or any of these people that are professionals. I'm dealing with a different type of problem. But nonetheless, I still have to push, I have to innovate, I still have to come up with new stuff and solutions and offers. That doesn't change the nature of my business nor yours.
That's right.
So either elevate or you go backwards. Because if you believe stagnation is good, well, obviously it's not. You're getting older and you're not getting any better. So that means you actually went backwards. So stagnation doesn't exist. You're either going backwards or forward. Well,
Yeah.
I choose to go forward, So for example, I just, to give you an idea, somebody, because obviously I get the same DMs and probably some of these business people here, and they say, I got a problem. Dog is like the classic, 1-2 years. I told you a list of problems. Okay, so I just asked them, what would you like then? If you could choose, how do you see things? What would you like? They say, basic obedience. And I tell them, so you want everything in abundance. You like your health to be basic, or you want it to be great? Of course, you want it to be great. You want your finances to be just basic, or you want it to, of course, I want everything to be great, but this dog needs to be basic. How does that make sense? Well, actually, it doesn't. Okay, but maybe you define basic and maybe your basic is extremely advanced. I don't know. So define your basics. Well, then I think, okay, majority of your problems was due to the fact you only had basic in mind for one of the most intelligent breeds in the world, which is the German Shepherd. The German Shepherd is extremely, because his drive is never over the top. His interest is always there. He's got you in his eyesight. So he knows what's going on. So he is processing the whole time. You're giving him a sit and a down stay. That's his career. That's what he's gonna do. He can be basic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not even meeting basic criteria. It means obviously mediocrity is your next step. Are you sure you want basic? Maybe I don't. You see, just one sentence. Question it. Maybe they don't want basic. Maybe they wanted advanced to begin with. Just explaining what it is then. So
Yeah.
it needs to be more explanation also behind the offer. Not just that I'm more expensive. Well, good for you. Why is that? Because your floors have better matting, like stuff like this. Your kennels are made out of stainless steel or instead of plastic. Why are you more expensive?
Gold
Could have many reasons.
gold kennels. Well,
Location.
and know that, as professionals too, that I'm not for everybody, man. And to know, like, it's a two-way street. And I love that you were saying that about doubling the prices. I charge a premium, and I charge a premium because I feel like I can provide that value to my clients. And I've been flown all over the world with clients and working with them with great results. And a lot of times the clients that I get are because of the clients I already had and the results that I've produced with those clients. And so it becomes defining who your clients are, who you really want to work with. And that's another aspect of avoiding burnout, is not trying to be everything to everybody, but being that special thing to the people that really value you, and that you can value them in return. And then that's when the conversation really happens. And I love that basic obedience, man. Like, you want basic health, you want basic what, tell me, that's something that I think is I've never heard that, man. Like, it's something that needs to be considered, is like the expectations. Like, what do you expect out of this relationship with your dog? Do you want to just be able to have a dog that's not really like a robot, but
I think, because I talk to people all the time and I question them, because truly I'm in a position where I don't have to get their service or what. I mean, I can sometimes I challenge them, and you would be surprised once you start challenging them what they're saying. So, and then when I tell them, like, this whole basic, thought thinking process, is this because you're afraid that advanced, because what they call advanced is like the opposite of basic, would mean more work? Is that your concern, that it would be more work? And usually it is. It is. Yeah, but I want the basic because that's manageable. Like, hey, I'm not greedy. Just give me the basics. I'm fine. Yeah, but you're thinking Having a dog is not just thinking you. You're also going to have to think of, what is this dog build of? Like, what does the dog want? If he would be able to have a voice in this, would you truly believe he just needs 2 3 things in his life and he'd be totally fine? And then they actually come to the realization that, yeah, maybe he is more than just that. Maybe he could do more. Because why are you reaching out to me? Like, is there anything in my reels that you would refer to as basic and you still message me? What is it then that you see? Well, I like the way they're committed and the way they're moving. And yeah, but that's nothing to do with your what you want basic. It's and also nothing to do with advanced. It just means strategizing to have more by becoming more in the first place. So the mind is not on, what do I get out of this? The mind is, how do I enjoy this? And that the byproduct is this insane obedience, which you didn't even attempt in the first place to do this crazy sequence of commands. But it was just about finding that connection and finding fun and understanding that through this process, I'm going to get an outcome better than most people probably, because those 2 minutes that are skilled and have value are way more efficient in the long term. It's same thing as, yeah, I got the best toothbrush in the world, so I only have to brush once a week. No, my shitty toothbrush, which costs $50 in Costco, it's probably going to be more efficient if I do it every day for 2 minutes than your hypersonic, whatever, electric $300 brush. You're not going to win when I keep doing these 2 minutes of quality brushing. You see, so it's maybe a simple comparison, but I believe that's how it is. So I say, look, don't look at dog training in 2 weeks. You're nothing. For me, in 2 weeks, you maybe learn how to hold food and how to move with food. Talk to me in 3 6 months. Sounds long to you? Then forget it. This 3 to 6 months, the impact on your dog in a different strategy is like complete 180. 180. You will not even recognize your own dog. I'm telling you, you will believe this is a different dog you bought. And I have the proof because I have before and afters. You're not going to believe this was your dog. Now, obviously, because you go through the process, you will believe it because you see it happening in front of your face. But the before and after is so insanely transformative that it's hard to believe almost. But that's
Well,
what
and
you get.
I want to show people too. Like, let me show you. I want to show you guys some of the reels here, and here, let me see here of what we're talking about, man. Like this could be you. That's what I love, dude. Is like, imagine, put yourself in. Whoops, hold on. Imagine, put yourself in a position where this is your dog. Imagine just for a second, visualize what this would feel like if you had this relationship with your dog. Hook my keeps popping back out down, but imagine if you, I mean, just that's what I tell people is like, watch some of these videos. And actually, this is what really attracted me to you too, Nino, was watching these dogs, man, and not just watching these dogs, but watching them with other people. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the key, is that you have to be able to instill knowledge in others and be able to, as a good teacher, we become progressively unnecessary once we've instilled this knowledge. And so this is what I love about what you're doing, man. Is like, it's not just you over and over and over. And I love that this could be you, right? It's like, it's not just you by yourself teaching these videos. It's your clients, and sometimes it's your helper or whatever, and you're standing right next to them, coaching them or whatever. And it's, I mean, look at this. The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in these dogs. And let me go ahead and see if I can
But
clap
all
this down.
this, this would be worthless if a dog couldn't even walk from A to B. So I also understand priorities, because this is a focus heel, but I wouldn't care about a focus heel if I would understand the street heel. The street heel is what I use every day. The focus heel is what I use in certain circumstances or when you want to make a highlight, whatever. So you also have to understand the gravity of what you're teaching and what is important in your teaching to also get you the outcome you wanted the most. For example, if you're going to do a protection work, your strategy is going to be slightly different also than somebody who's just looking to live with their pet and have a great street walk and not a reactive dog and have a little bit of extra, baggage in their obedience. So It's one of those things that people don't know how to strategize. So remember, we talked about analytics. There's also something called as strategic skills. But all of this is not highlighted in dog training because we are an underdeveloped profession. We are not like on the highest level of operating when it comes to defining our skills. It's like it feels like we're a little bit behind. It's like, for example, I see Armand, who's been with us here on the chat for a while, and she says, for example, or he, excuse me if I
Arm
started
Hammer.
Armand. Yes.
Hammer.
I started old school, moved to R plus, now I believe using all for quadrants. For me, quadrants is such an abstract thing if I'm training dogs, because everything is in the moment, in the second, is like solution instantly based on the skills that you have. The skills are so simple to comprehend that it's I don't think in quadrants. You see, for me, I would actually have to sit down and think, okay, was that a quadrant that I used? Probably. Of course, everybody uses quadrants subconsciously.
Yeah.
But the consciousness is not what is going to define your success in quadrants. It's your subconscious operating skills you didn't have before, which makes you envision solutions and come to conclusions and actions way better and faster. That is actually making you better. So it's not like I moved to quadrants. Well, probably if you never heard of quadrants, you were already using them. You see, so it's not the quadrant that made you better. I think, like, for example, negative reinforcement existed before Skinner ever named it negative reinforcement.
Yeah, it just has a
Because
label.
There's pioneers in that made training manuals that are talking about a non-agreeable experience, which is then the negative reinforcement. So it's a prerequisite of calling it negative reinforcement. So people understood by pressure and by manipulation there are certain outcomes you can get from an animal. Look at the horses have been domesticated, trained for thousands and thousands of years. The history of people always use the negative reinforcement. So obviously people knew the concept of negative reinforcement really, really well. So this is nothing new. So to call this innovation is not an accurate statement. Innovation, you know what the difference is between creativity and innovation? Creativity is you start with a white sheet and I have nothing to work with, and I'm going to create something from literally zero. There was nothing, and then there was something. So true creators are a very rare kind. But then you have innovators who can actually use certain components, see what's going on, analyze, and start imagining things to operate better and find more efficient ways to go about it. This is innovation. Okay, so what is creative, what is innovation, and what is true innovation? As it has not been attempted before, I took this experiment, I trained it, I tested it, I multiplicated it, I studied it, I took other people in, and now I'm starting seeing patterns in this result. So I'm trying to innovate, but it's hard to say you're innovating if you're referring to quadrants. Do you understand that? So the innovation is not in the quadrant or your interpretation of the quadrant, because it's not supposed to be interpreted any way other than it's already documented. You just can't go out there and say, I have completely reinterpreted classical conditioning, and it is now something else that I believed it wasn't before. The whole point of having a validated science-based method or two is the fact that you shouldn't second guess it. It is what it is.
Yes, it's established science.
Exactly. So why is this always on the forefront? If you're talking about true innovation, you have to start looking at different angles. Like, forget your quadrants for a second here. Let's then start talking about these imaginary skills, these analytical skills, these strategic skills, like these spatial awareness skills, these movement skills, these fine motor skills. Yeah, so many things to dive into, which actually truly mean innovation. Because why? They've never been studied. If they were studied, Chat GPT, hello, DeepSeek, whatever you want to call it, you will find it. You will find it easier. There's no easier way than today to find the data. There is no data. That's innovation. But innovation is meaningless unless you can put a result to it, unless you've done it for many, many years in your cave, so to speaking, and then you come out and you say, I think I'm onto something. How about this?
creativity is the idea, innovation is to take that idea and to put it into work on
Mhm.
different aspects, right? To innovate, to work with it,
Yeah.
to use this to always push our evolution of knowledge and understanding, right? And I believe that that's our goal, is to, it's these dogs. The relationship that we have with dogs is very important, man. Is very there's so many aspects of it that they can teach us. It's just that we don't take the time
Mhm.
to appreciate that, I don't think, as a whole, right? And that's what I like what you're saying about the basic obedience, and essentially this is about fulfilling the dog's desires as well, right? And making sure that they are communicating with us. It's interspecies communication. And how do we raise that bar of expectations as
Mhm.
human beings, because that's what we are, and we're able to communicate with each other. But even as we communicate with each other, we see innovations, and like you said, the chat GPT, the AI stuff,
Yeah.
eventually the robotics, the automation, all these things have led to a more comfortable world for us. But it's also, there's a whole subset of problems that pop up because of that. And just like with the problems that we come in and we want to solve things with tools, well, guess what? That pops up a whole nother series of problems about people being reliant on the tools, misusing the tools. And so how do we take this in a deeper level of understanding and being creative, but also innovating on what we already have?
Yeah, I think the simplest form of dog training is also the most exciting and fun form. The minute you need to overthink things, look at it this way: if your human brain can't see and find the solution of what the dog's binary brain, because it is usually, well, I want this.
Yeah,
What's the way to get it? know, if that becomes too complex, you already too heavy on it on the subject.
don't
Really.
overthink it,
Yeah, if
right?
you look at the most complex Hollywood stunts with dogs, for example, if you break them down, the successive approximation, which is the term to define this type of training, and the complexity of multiple things happening, and then being like a dog painting with his mouth, for example, flushing the toilet. This is
Yep.
all based on successive approximation. So, but the simplicity of one of these change is so easy. There you go. Why didn't I come up with this? I could have done this way longer before, you see? But that's what I mean, is like the genius is usually in the simplicity, especially in dog training. And that's what I feel people are lacking a little bit, is they forget how simple things can be. Healing is simple, but very hard if you overthink it. Do you understand the concept of synchronicity and motion? If the answer is no, you'll always be in trouble with your healing, because dog Z is always going to go too fast. It's not going to pace. You will not understand what the incentive is for the dog to stay in synced, because you have never prioritized or studied what's syncing, how the dog can relate to this sync. A dog uses references the whole time, because if he's healing and he's with his heads up, obviously there's no reward. He's using a different reference. Believe it. He is using a reference. Well, that reference usually for people is their face, but that is tricky reference, because that reference, because the dog is so focused on the face, it forgets about where the body positions itself, and therefore starts leaning in more and making a little bit of adjustments, because he believes that connection is the healing. There's a primary objective of healing, is the handler connection with the face, as looking in the eye. As we're the best healing, what I define as the best healing in motion, which is extreme synchronicity, is like pacing. A dog that can pace, that can use his prance, his balance, like it's insanely technical also. It's actually not so hard, but it is hard if you don't understand synchronicity. So the reference is different for the dog healing vertically and pacing itself, and with his chest moving along with your knee, and understanding the pivot in a way that makes it look like a symbiosis. Well, this is based on different criteria than looking at you. You see? So if you understand the references of the dogs using either alignment as a reference and positioning instead of connection and looking, you will have a total different type of healing. So once you know there's two different types, although they all look the same, because you will say it's focus healing, you're both going to call it focus healing, but the strategy to get either one of them is different. Although there might be similarities, it's going to be at some point different. You might start both with a lure, but the way you finish and the way you align and the way you fade everything out. So I did a healing. It's not this.
And it's also the steps that we take, right? So we start with the positions, and then we might fine tune it to a focus like this, or.
Well, this is actually the lab is not like, for me, the best healing example of symbiosis. I prioritized for the lab. It was very hard to move technically, so the healing wasn't my first priority. For me, priority was I need to make this lab, stop hopping, and because the lab is very hoppy. It's not a very technical dog, so my emphasis went to technique for this dog. So now he became so technical. This is actually a video you showed from like a year ago, which is like, again, a different priority set. So you literally can make your dog become anything that you start imagining, based also on the assessment of your dog. You can't just say, I believe I wanted the best biting protection dog in the world, and you start thinking of it, you're going to get it. No, it also has to be based on the assessment of his potential. And these also have criteria. We go through it, like I said, in the MVP. But once you understand that there is things to work with, what you can create on the priorities that you put is insane. Like, for example, I have RJ, who is like insanely good in healing, but like he masters the 12 styles. I do 12 styles of healing and focus and in contact healing and in street healing. So he's like a master of healing. And also he does some protection work. So he's really good at that stuff. Then we have the lab, who is extremely technical. So the lab is that he can switch drives, he can switch gears, he can move like you've never seen a dog move today, because I put the emphasis on technique. Then we have a dog. Who else we have here? Casey, for example.
Well, remember Rocky too.
Yeah, so there's many dogs with different types of things that we wanted to highlight. So the thing is, what is the difference between all these dogs is because we prioritize certain things for them to develop in. And this is what is part of your strategy, is what do you want your dog to be really good at? And that can be very easy. I mean, easy as in simple things, just as, I just want to go on a walk. Well, great. Let me get you the greatest walk you will ever have. Are you ready for the strategy? You see? So, all right, I'm ready. Okay, it's going to take a few months, but if you do this, nothing's going to trump this type of healing. So I got students like super proud switching between 3 healing styles the whole time. On one side, from focus to street to contact and back and forth. So it's like, oh my God, people are even struggling to get one type of healing, let alone three types in different styles, which means lefts, between, reverse. So it's endless almost. But that's what I mean. You find this important, you're going to get it. Because first is the assessment is not based on how good can he heal, because nobody knows. You've never done it. The assessment is based on what is his dog interested in? How is his energy level? What is it like? What gets his attention? And how can we use it? And that, okay, now we're ready to go.
Well, and I often tell people we can only curate what is present within that dog. We can not make them something that they're not, right? And so that's the assessment.
Yet.
Oh, okay. Yet.
Yeah, of course, because we got dogs that doing things that nobody would thought were possible. So I got this couch potato golden retriever, that has no food drive whatsoever, had no interest in anything, was reactive on top of that. Now there's like complete Malinois routines. It looks like a working dog. I did a poll once on my story. I said, do you believe this dog was a couch potato for 3 years without drive? And then 67% thought I was lying. It was like, this is bullshit. This is not possible. This was a working dog golden. Of course not. You see, it's not where you want it like yet, but he will. Based on the simple thing, can I motivate this dog to get even a piece of food out of my hand? How did you go from no food drive to be willing to heal, to do Malinois type of things when he wasn't even interested in food to begin with, and not a ball or tugs. Like he was just a couch potato. How is that possible? Not by focusing on his sprints that he was showing the first ever attempt, you would say, oh my God, this is never going to happen. Never. It still happened, you know?
Yeah.
So beware of the potential they're hiding. You don't know yet.
Well, and Nino, I think we've been talking for 2 hours, man. I would love to talk to you again. Like, I really enjoyed this conversation. And in the future, if you're willing, let's maybe set up another time in a few months or something. And I there's so much more I want to talk to you about. Let me process this conversation. I'll have questions for you, but I also want to show that you are, STS K9 is how you find. That's a great domain, by the way. Five characters, pretty good. Let me run through the comments here really quick, and then I appreciate and value your time. I know it's getting late over there in Belgium, so I want to wrap this up here pretty soon. STS, is that in the United? It's not in the United States, or you come here from?
The corporation is still U.S. based. That's where I started in the U.S. But
Really?
I
Okay.
moved. So yeah, so I'm operating it from here in Belgium now, but it's still a U.S. company. So yeah.
Okay, and then we have George Cockrell. I don't know if you know him. He's been training dogs longer than I've been alive.
No,
He's an OG, man, and I love you, George. He had a heart
nice
attack.
logo also.
Yeah,
Badass.
he's a mechanic. He's a great guy, man. George,
Nice.
love you, brother. Thank you for being here as always. Then we have this Nate Schomer. They recommended STS, and then of course I had to text Nate to tell him that somebody commented. So here's Nate watching with us here. Yeah, Nate's awesome. Let me see here. Play is instrumental. Love that. I think play is very underrated as far as in the obedience. We have MVP program is awesome. Kashi's from India. Kashi's doing some wonderful things. I don't know if you know about Kashi.
I think on Facebook, doesn't he have like a hunting breed, like some kind of grayish?
No, he's got the Weimaraner. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I remember a quote I used. I don't know if Kashi remembers, but it's been like a few years ago. I remember he had like 30 million views on a video, and at some point, and I don't know if he remembers, so we'll find out. At some point, I think he commented in something like, "If anybody yeah, I got 30 million views, but 0 on my account. Like, yes, you're getting millions of views, but you're not getting paid for it." And I think I replied, "Try doing it for 20 years and see what happens." You see? So I understand frustration of people showing great things, getting tons of views, but not getting any business from it, or maybe recognition or whatever. And I remember Kashi, I don't know if he even remembers, but I remember this statement that he made because it stuck with me. That yes, it's not because you got yourself a viral reel or you're extremely good at what you do or you're a genius that you're going to get any business from it. And this is what we also talked about in your podcast, is your offer and the clarity and what you really represent and who you want to cater to and who not, maybe. So that's also important. Like, so define this, and somebody who enjoys your reels or videos is not necessarily going to buy from you. So
yeah, they're just
people forget, like
content.
I've been posting dogs since 2005. I was one of the first people. Actually, Bart's most famous video comes from my friend, because I was always at the gym. So I my track and field thing in the gym, and right next to the gym was a big window, and I used to train my dogs there on their pitch. They allowed me because it was actually fun to watch. And one of these people had professional camera gear and said, "Oh my God," I said, "I never seen anybody do this with a dog. Can I film you?" I said, "Just come to the club and you can film us and the other people also." And that's when he filmed Bart. And that's actually Bart's most famous video, is
With
because
Thor?
my friend came for me, with Thor on the pitch with the black dog. And it was actually a joint video. And Bart asked to split the video because he wanted himself only in it. And I had my own video with Cody, but it was like just a dog training like tribute. It wasn't a business video or anything. It was my friend from the gym who wanted to film this. So that's, like I said, we go way back. And that's cool. It's a small world, isn't it?
Yeah, especially in the dog training world too. And
Yeah.
we have a couple questions. We'll ask these questions and then we'll sign off here. So We're developing techniques. What are your tools of choice of training? We kind of got into that a little bit, Manuel, but what are, when you do use tools, is it just leash?
Yeah.
What?
So I like the Star Mark plastic collar. Why is that? Because look, I don't forget I have a police background. For me, using the flat collar as a boundary is not an option. Why? Because I always do protection work with my dogs, and that tactile pull is obviously the cue for the dog to go forward. So if I would consistently have this on my dog, well, and I would teach him in his protection work that when I pull this, you're supposed to pull how a dog is supposed to understand this. So I don't like chokers at all. So I never use this unless you're dealing with like some extreme aggressive stuff. But so what I use is a plastic prong. I find this an interesting tool because it's actually not meant to pull back, because that stuff would break very easy. Like literally, you would pull it and it was like, oh shit, you broke it. So it's just like to have a differentiation between what. Yeah, this is the plastic prong. Yeah, the Star Mark. So this is something I use as to make a differentiation between a flat collar and this, because you can't have two flat collars, and I don't like the choke. And then there's not really much on the market out there that can replace, because that the prong is too even for, like, let's say for example the lap. Oh, the prong would be way too harsh for the lap, way too harsh. If the lab would just feel that thing, he would go, oh, done, no more lap, gonna do any of this stuff, you see. So okay, that, and the plastic thing is okay because it's not like sharp or anything. So the plastic thing still gives you a little bit of subtlety. So if you do want to direct a little bit, not correct, it's the difference. So if you do want to use some subtlety, the plastic tool for me is more than enough. So that's it. If anything else comes out, I'll look at it. But those are like the basic things. Cost what, $5 or something? You just showed it, $10. I don't know.
Yeah, I
So
think it's
basically, you don't need a whole lot. Yeah, flat collar, $5. This thing, $10. That's it.
$10 in America
Yep.
here. And then we mentioned earlier that we use a flexi for a puppy
Yeah.
to start the
Yeah.
synchronization.
Because obviously else he's going to hit the end of the line faster than you can extend your arm. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I like that there is a little cue when they start up on,
Yeah.
there's a subtle little vibration from coming off the roll. I use flexis too, man. I
Yeah.
have a few of them, and I love them, and I want the dog to explore their environment, and when I'm not being too insistent, and then let them go. And if they if they get way too far away, they might have a subtle correction, but I like that they have a little indicator of
Yeah,
the
but
zzz.
and you can absorb, because if you know zzz, then oh, I better speed up because else
Yes.
he's gonna hit it too hard. So you can, it's physics, you just adapt your speed a little bit, so the impact lessons, like you said, is just gonna be like, oh, I hit the hand of it, and he doesn't even care. So that's how to do it. Now, of course, if you consistently, that's when your skill training comes into play, because that's where you're actually going to use then your leverage that you use at home and your development and your skill development, and you're going to redirect the puppy and stuff, because there is nothing to call him. He doesn't even know what a word means, let alone his name. So you see, that's where I'm going. I'm going like back to your first day out with a puppy. That is like an insanely big problem for people. Taking this puppy out for the first time. First of all, most of them don't even want to walk, let alone they're going to pull. Really,
Yeah.
they don't want to walk. Usually, when you get a puppy, they're like, huh? Like, what
What
is
is this
this?
on me? This
Yeah,
foreign,
or it's gonna bite the leash. It's gonna
yeah,
bite the leash. So this
or
is all stuff
yeah,
I don't care about. Yeah,
yeah.
bite the leash, whatever. Yeah, so I don't worry about this. Like, I have
And then
great examples of this. How that is so easily to overcome. Obviously, there's nothing there for the puppy. Something is moving in its way. He grabs it. You can't blame the puppy for this. You can't correct your puppy for this. But
no,
I have dragged my 10-week-old puppy, and he was just airlifted on his leash. And you would believe, mother, my God, what are you doing? Like, is this gonna be a problem? He never does it. You know why? Because at some point at 12 weeks, all of a sudden, he also understands center heel and skills, and he chooses. So he bites the leash, and I just hold leash up, so it's harder for him to grab it. He can if he really wants to, but I usually in the beginning, I go then into his performance little thing, and you know what? This puppy at 12 weeks could, like, wants the leash and then start thinking, well, this is hard, goes into the center heel. A choice that a little puppy makes at 12 weeks, just because he understands that I've done this before and this is actually fun. And the skill, the biting the leash was also fun, but I can't reach it really well, but I can go in the middle really fast. So let me try this. Oh, you'd be surprised how fast they can switch.
Yep.
They, by choice, not even like bribing them to go between your legs. No, no, no. He's just like, he's trying. He's like, oh, that doesn't work. So that's how puppies work. Like, oh, there I see something else. And that thing is you. That's when you're on a good track, you know?
Yeah, when the puppy starts to understand and we start to transition them to, do you use like a 6 foot line leather? What do you have any preference on material or any
Yeah.
length or anything?
If I'm going on a walk, I'm using a 3 foot leash. That's it. 3 foot.
3 foot leash.
Not,
Okay.
not longer, not shorter. 3 foot. That is my standard. Without 3 foot, if you're ever going to visit my camp, we're not going to train dogs unless your leash is 3 foot. And that's
Okay.
for a reason. In my leash kills, it can't be too long. You'll step on it. If you step on it, you're going to do stupid stuff. You can't have your dog tangle in it. If it's too short, literally the thing is like, it's not going to work. So the 3 feet is like the glorious size that's for whatever reason they don't make.
Interesting. Yep.
So I make my own 3 foot leashes. So,
Yeah, I don't hear about that much, but yeah, and
mhm.
we'll talk about that more too when we talk next. So last questions here from my man Kashi, and I just did a live stream with Kashi. I've done a couple
Mm,
of them. I love the work that he does. I just love he's an imagination guy, man. Like I
yeah.
that's what attracted me to talk to him. Was like I watched some of these videos he put out, and I'm like, ooh, this guy's thinking outside the box. This guy is being creative and innovative here with what he knows. So he asked, do you use shaping if it's not your preference to begin with? If you do, when and for what kinds of behaviors?
For me, I never do it because I'm after different things. I'm after obedience reflex responses. So I don't need to open my dog's mind to say so, where he can find his solutions and has to start thinking about how his behavior can activate me. That's not my game. My game is technical skills. My game is showing the dog the shortest way, the fastest way, the easiest way, the most technical way to get into these positions and movement. And that's my foundation. So it's like almost the opposite. So
Interesting.
instead of letting the dog's behavior dictate my response, I let my movement dictate his pace and his technical abilities. So two different things, two different worlds. Now, what you get with one thing is a dog that starts thinking and maybe overthinking, even like what is the solution to his thing, which once he finds it, he will definitely remember it. So that's the good thing. The bad thing is there is no way any of these shaping people, anybody is ever going to have their dog look like my lab. You cannot compete. It's the same thing as I want to go to the Olympics. I'm 35 years old. Let me try to sprint. It's never going to happen, man.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen. If
Even
you are doing insane reflex technical movement as from puppy, you're not just going to play catch up. The game doesn't work like that. If that was my emphasis, if that was my goal, you are unbeatable at that. Your technical ability is going to be on a different level. And no dog that's ever shaped itself into a position is going to move as technical as if you are technical and teaching it to move that way. The pivot is like, it's like robotic movement almost. If you like that, maybe some people like to chain things, have different, like for example, service dog would be more appropriate maybe to shape things to where's that switch that I need to get on. You don't want a dog banging on switches like this shit's got to move. Like, no, you want this dog. Okay, that didn't work. Let me check this environment. Let me scan. But that's not what I do. So I live a happy life with dogs that don't need this type of scanning because it's binary. Down, boom, come, boom, foot, boom, like leash, boom, bite, boom, come back. You see, so it's all very linear. Whoop, A to B, linear, binary. So it's so reflex based that for me, that type of approach would do nothing unless I was in service work, because I actually have service dog students who have a huge foundation in this, and then they still do my stuff and they love it. So you can't combine both. Now, of course, are these dogs going to move like my dog? Well, no, but they can create that interest and that, it's definitely more explosivity. So that's the thing. It's all about choices in the end of the day. So the more you know, the better choices you can make.
Yep.
So, and
And
I
it's
think
important.
one can go with the other. But the whole problem is to end it is if you do too much, a little bit of everything, it doesn't get you the result that you want. It's better to then go, you know what? I'm gonna stick with this. I'm gonna stick with this, and I understand the strategy to get to the result of this type of training with this type of outcome. That's also a principle. Why is a principle so interesting? Is because you can predict your expectations, or you can expect what's going to happen, and therefore you take action to let it happen. That's why if you implement 5 different strategies, you no longer have this same type of prediction or accepting the result, because it simply hasn't been combined this way. So you could end up losing a lot of time and not getting the result because you did a little bit of everything. But you know what? That also goes to behavioral patterns of people. Some people are very responsibility oriented based on time, so they want to have things done as fast as possible, and they want to make sure the job is done, and therefore they will combine everything they will ever find to ensure the result and the time it's being delivered, and therefore make choices to start combining things that actually are not meant to be combined.
Yeah.
So it's also behavioral patterns of people that cause this decision making.
And it's scattered. Like, to me, it's just scattered when you have too much variables, and it's scattered where this is much more focused. And we have to remember too that service dog work is slow, concentrated work a lot of times too, right? And so, awesome, dude.
So that's what I mean. It's like a different, because you expect a different outcome. Nobody ever in service work said, "Oh, when I ask my dog something, he's like flying through that living room to get the switch," But on the other end, if you ask people, if you had a choice, you want your dog to do it fast or slow? If you could choose, what would you choose? Majority, 90% always says, "I'll choose fast."
Yeah, fast.
If I do have a choice, let me choose fast then. Okay, so you're setting the criteria now. You want fast. What else you want? You want technical? You want dynamic? Explosive? There's so many things. Agile, coordinated, like, name it. Is that what you want? See, it's simple. Yes or no. All right, you have a choice. Why? Yes. Okay. So I'm just making marks.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I have all your criteria you would like. Okay,
You're an
this is your
analyst.
strategy.
Yes.
Of course. So this is your strategy. You wanted this. Here's your strategy to go and get this. Let's go. Action time. Principles. Put them into place. Get the job done. 2 minutes, like brushing your teeth. Let's talk again in 6 months. And blow everything out of the water. That's always the purpose.
Yeah, and if you guys want to learn more, you're having a sale right now, up to 40%
it's the
off.
last day, by the way. Yes,
last day, you guys. So if you're watching this right now, and look at this handsome man here. I'm talking about the dog. No, just kidding.
Thank you.
Valentine's Day. We have a lot of programs. I got the link in the comments below, you guys. Check out Nino, and I want to shout out to another OG is with us, you guys. We got Nelson Hodges. I don't know if you know about Nelson. He has a center down in just outside of Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas area. And he talks about people reading dog language and dog body language and how to connect with the dog, looking through the eyes by proxy of the dog. And love you, Nelson. He's been in the industry a very long time as well.
Awesome.
Nino, let's say goodbye to the crowd here. This has been an awesome talk, dude. I appreciate you. I've learned so much, man.
You're welcome. It was my honor to be here and share my passion with you guys. So thank you.
Awesome. And then I'll say goodbye to you.
Me. Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure, dude. Thank you for coming. And bye, everybody.